Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to check the valves on the Yamaha YZ250F 2024 model. As you can see here, the valve clearance specifications are for the intake. You can see here they're 0.0047 to 0.0075 inches. Okay, and down here you can see the exhaust specs, they're a little bit higher. So roughly speaking, you can see it's about 5,000 to 7.5 thousandths of an inch, and about, this is roughly 7 thousandths to 9.5 thousandths of an inch. Okay, and here you can see where we were at the specs here. So particularly this intake valve here was getting close to the lower end of the range. So we are expecting actually this one, the right intake valve, to be almost out of spec when we check it. But let's open up the engine and see. And this particular bike I used to win at the FIM Asia Motocross Championship 2024, round 1 in the Veterans A class. So that's the age group from 35 to 49 years old. If you want to get better, check out the information in the description about Fast Club. And let's jump straight into it. So actually I checked the valve clearances at 30 hours and they were still within specifications. But they were getting close to getting out of spec. So now I'm checking it again at 44 hours. And the first thing we're gonna do before we can check the valves is we're gonna remove the seat and all the side panels, so the side plastics here and also the shrouds here. And then we're gonna take all that off, and then we're gonna disconnect the fuel tank and just rotate it out of place. We don't have to completely take off the fuel tank, and then we can get access to the top engine cover, which is right here. And then we're gonna set it on top dead center using the inspection hole here, and of course the crank access here. And then also check up here with the cam lobes that it's at top dead center. And then we're gonna check the valve clearances again and then probably adjust them. Okie dokie, so let's get started. Take that one off. And this. And then I'll just put this one there. So it's also has two here. You can see here it could use a wash also without the plastics. Some people I've heard they actually take off the plastics for washing the bikes often, and that's a good idea, as you can see here. And then to take the tank off, you just have to take off this rubber band thingy, and then there's two bolts in front. And then you can lift it off like this and position it. We can actually put it like this, and then there's access. Oh. So now there's almost access here, and then we just need to clean it up a little bit down here first. Okay, and the first thing I always do when I get the top cover off is I check the cam chain tension. I just check the cam chain tension and it looks really tight. That's good. So the cam chain tension, it works as it should. So that's good. Cool. Okay, and now we are gonna go and see if we can get it to top dead center. Okay, I think we got it now. So we can check if you look down here, you can see the marks are aligning. And so if we're looking from up here, you can see the mark is aligned there, and over here you can see the other mark on this side just down there. I'm not gonna take this gasket off. Normally you would want to take this gasket off to see those marks better, but because I sealed it with liquid gasket underneath here, now it's kind of stuck, and I'm just gonna leave it stuck because then I'm sure it's not gonna be leaking oil afterwards. But if I have any problems seeing those marks when I realign it and reinstall the cams after done with the adjustment, then I will take off the gasket to make sure it's aligned properly. Okay, so now we're ready to start measuring, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure with 5/1000 of an inch on the intake on the right side, because that's where I expect it might need an adjustment. So we're getting easily in with 5, so that's still in spec actually, and also on the left side it's higher than 5,000, so it's actually still within specifications. Now let's try to do a 5.5. We're going to do that by being a bit creative. We're going to take the 0015 plus a 4,000ths, and then I always clean them with some tissue. I just always give them a little clean with the tissue here, in case there's a little piece of dirt or something on. Okay, nice. It actually still fits. And this is, so it actually feels like this is still exactly the same clearance as last time. So now we're going to try with a 6/1000 of an inch feeler gauge, and see. Okay, so this one doesn't fit in on the right side. Okay, so the right side intake is still 5.5 of an inch, and let's see over here. This is the left intake. Okay, so this is 6 thou. Okay. So now I'll update my paper here. So they are actually exactly the same. So I'm not gonna adjust them because they stay in the same specification. So they might stay here for a long time, I don't know. But I'm gonna leave it like this. Now we're gonna measure the exhaust valve clearances. Okay, and now we're gonna check the exhaust valve clearances, and I start with 8 thou gauge. So this should go in easily. Yep, it fits right through. Easy peasy. And let's try the other side here. Yep, easy peasy. And now we're gonna try an 8.5, and the way we do that is by taking the 7 thou plus the 1.5 thou. Let's see. So here's the 7, and here's the 1.15. Okay. So now I'm expecting this one shouldn't fit under the right side because it's only 8 thou. Now it runs real tight now, it doesn't fit in. Let's try on the other side here. Okay, so it fits under the left side. But it doesn't fit under the right, as expected, so it's also the same. Okay. Okay, so now we're done checking the valves, and they were exactly the same as last time. So from 30 hours to 44 hours, they didn't even move one bit. So we're gonna leave it at this because actually it is better for the engine to run it at a tighter clearance, both in terms of performance and longevity, because it has less impulse. When you have a bigger clearance, the cam lobes down here, they actually make they transfer more impulse, more impact force into the buckets below. So in terms of pure physics, it's actually better for the engine to run tight clearances. Of course, if it was closer to the service limit, which is 0047, if it was closer to that, I would do an adjustment, but it's still pretty far away from that. So we're just gonna put everything back together and then we are done. Oh, and notice in this process, I didn't loosen the chain tension at all at any point. So we're leaving the chain tight. That way we don't do any unnecessary work, you know. I was actually prepared to having to adjust the valves today, but still I didn't loosen up the chain tensioner yet, because in case we ended up having the same specifications, which we did, then it would be a waste of time and risk loosening the chain. Because, you know, every time you loosen up the chain, there's a risk that you might misalign the cams again, and it's very, very important work that you realign everything correctly and make sure that chain timing is set correctly. So you take a lot of unnecessary risk if you loosen this one up before checking the clearances and figuring things out. There's definitely not a whole lot of room when getting this cover back on. But of course, if you are cautious, you can line things up and get it in there. Now it's all about relining the gasket before you push down or put the bolts on. Okay, so now I've checked the gasket is aligned all the way around the edge underneath, and then I've pressed it down like that and make sure it's seated properly everywhere. You can see if we look down here, you can see it's aligned properly, right? Otherwise you would destroy your gasket if you just assume it's falling into place and then torque it down. And regarding these cylinder head cover bolts, you can see here in the manual that they have 10 Newton meters torque specifications. So I would say it's really important to use a torque wrench for this, especially if you're not that familiar with wrenching. Okay, because they are really easy to damage, these kind of 5mm Allen bolts. If you use too much force, you can both damage the Allen, or even worse, you could strip the threads of the engine inside. And of course, it's really important you remember to reconnect the breather hose here. like that, and reinsert the spark plug top cap or whatever it's called, like that. Press it down, and then put this one back on here. That's also an M6. It's gotta be 10 Newton meters too. Done. Okay, and regarding these timing cover caps, the big one is the M36 crankshaft end accessing screw, and that is 10 Newton meters. And then the other one is, small one, is 6 Newton meters. Just gonna put them on first like that. So let's start with the big one, because the torque wrench was already set for 10. Oh, like this. I'm just gonna give it a tiny bit more. Okay. Probably gave it 12. Because it's a very big thread, it can take a little bit more. I rather want it to be a bit too tight than too loose and fall off in this case. Otherwise, I never over torque any of the smaller threaded nuts or bolts or caps and whatever. And this one, we're gonna set it to, what was it? 6 Newton meters, maybe 7. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now we're done with putting the engine back together, so to speak. And now it's just about putting everything back together, the gas tank and all the covers, shrouds and number plates, and then we're done. So when you put your gas tank back on, of course, the important thing is to make sure that all the cables and this fuel line is positioned correctly, so it fits on nice and loosely without you having to squeeze it on or clamp the hose or anything like that, you know. And you can check that over here by just grabbing the hose and just feel that it's moving freely around in there, like pull it in and out a bit. And I can feel it's not being clamped or it's not stuck under something. So that's good. And then we're just gonna put on 1, 2 bolts here, and then don't forget to put this rubber band on, put this one on afterwards. And while you have the side covers off here, why not just do a quick check on the exhaust mounting bolts, because they are very prone to losing torque because they get hot and cold all the time. So heat cycles are usually what can make bolts lose their torque, but they are still good. So happy days. We'll do this one. Yeah, this one loosened up a lot. Quite. So that was a good idea to check that one. Okay, so now we're gonna put the mounting bolts here for the gas tank. And almost all of these bolts, for putting all the plastics on and everything, they're just torqued to 7 Newton meters, which is not a whole lot, but it's also small bolts, so. Okay, and then remember this one here, like that. By the way, pro tip, change this bolt down here to a more narrow one like this, more low profile, so your boots don't get caught on them. The original bolt down here, it made my boot get stuck, so I swapped that one out. By the way, this bolt and this one down there at the bottom, I think they only take around 5 Newton meters because they're mounted on some very flimsy plastic behind, but that's just a little side note. Okie dokie. Now we're done taking the valves. If you like this video, if you got any use from this video, make sure you give it a like and hit the subscribe button.